And I think the thing that's going to change this most of all is the net and the young Gen Xers who spent more time without parental authority than any generation probably in human history, who are now coming to very hierarchical workplaces and saying, I'm not willing to work like that. I love what one young 25-year-old told me recently, and some of you will be able to relate to this. He said, John, if you can stand outside the Kremlin now and tell President Putin that he's crazy and not be arrested, he said, you certainly ought to be able to tell your boss that the meeting he or she has scheduled this afternoon is mostly a waste of time and you're seriously thinking about not attending. One of the challenges of the workplace of the future, managers are going to have to pass the Kremlin test. And then they're going to have to start involving people in strategy, involving people in thinking about it. One of the things that I would say to you as a worker is we're also going to have to get a lot more bold about asking for companies to respect our values. If someone followed you around, what would they notice? Tell you a true story. University of British Columbia 5 years ago did a study. Sent graduate students out into the families with young children and gave them numerical clickers in their right and left hand. Didn't tell the families what they were doing, just said, we're studying something, can we come into your home? Yes. And they followed the families around all day long, and here was their simple instruction. If somebody makes a positive comment to somebody in the family, good girl, good boy, thank you, honey, it's just like you to be so nice, click your right hand. Somebody makes a negative comment, bad girl, bad boy, it's just like you to do that. Click your left hand. Here's what's interesting. For every 32 times they click that right hand positive clicker. Anybody want to guess how many times they click that negative one? 32 positive, left hand? 60, 100, way too low. 432 times. That's a 14-to-1 ratio. Now they're so daunted by that at the university, they say, maybe it's just young children that bring that out in people. And if you have young children, that's a reasonable hypothesis, right? So they send that same team of graduate students out into workplaces with the same instruction. Positive comment, click your right hand. Negative comment, click the left one. A little better in the world of work. For every one positive or appreciative comment, 8 negative or critical ones. When I first read that study, I'm a manager myself, like many of you. I asked myself this question: what if they followed me around?
With 20 years in the personal and professional development industry, John Izzo is a frequent guest in the media. His practical ideas on coping with the speed of change and recognized names in business are what make John Izzo an internationally acclaimed teacher and speaker. An author of 3 best-selling books and one of North America's leading advisors on creating workplaces that attract, inspire, and retain great people, John Izzo works hard to facilitate better conversations about life, work, relationships, and personal success. With 6 years in ministry and a doctorate in organizational communication and dual master degrees in theology and psychology, Dr. John Izzo is a seasoned blend of education, experience, and relevant trends. His best-selling books introduce the concepts of corporate soul and enlighten leadership to the modern workplace.
Well, I think people today want what people have always wanted. And I think human beings have always been driven by 2 primary motives at our deepest level. Number one, we want to know that we make a difference. We want to know that the world is somehow different for us having been a part of it, that we weren't irrelevant, we were necessary, we were needed. And the second thing is to feel like we belong. One of the things that all of us must recognize about these values is that each one of us in this room is a leader in creating the kind of organization we want in the future. It's not just up to the people who run the company. And I was on a flight this fall in November, and I was on the plane, and it was just one of those flights where everyone was in a foul mood. You know what I'm talking about? Just everyone was in a bad mood, everyone around me. The woman next to me was complaining about her boss, sending her up here, and these people never buy anything, and it's a waste of time to go there. The guy across the aisle was complaining about everything from the airline not being on time to it's too cold in the cabin, and he was just bitching one thing after another. And I'm a kind of a positive guy, but after about 45 minutes, I'm like, yeah, what a lousy airline, et cetera. The flight attendants had just about enough of all of us, because when they brought the cellophane-wrapped styrofoam sandwiches, they put one in the lap of the guy across from me, and he opened and she came back over, and he said, "Stewardess," he said, "this is a bad sandwich." And I love what she did. She picked it up in her hand and she said, "Bad sandwich, bad sandwich." Any of you ever want to do that to somebody at work? And we're all just in the groove, man. We're like bitching, complaining, moaning. And about 4 rows in front of me, there's a young boy, maybe about 18 months old, who all during the flight has been trying to stand erect on his mother's lap so he could see over the thing, right? But he had not quite made it all through the flight. You know, his head would get to here, and no one had actually seen him. And about an hour and a half into the flight, he finally, in one Herculean effort, got his chin just above the seat. And as soon as he looked out and he saw us sort of grumpy road warriors, he just broke into this big smile. He went, and do you know, within 1 minute, he had changed the ambiance of the entire 5 rows around him. The woman next to me who'd been complaining about her boss just a moment ago was going like this, trying to get him to smile again. The bad sandwich guy across the aisle was blowing circles with his mouth. He was going, trying to get that kid to smile back. And you know, with everything going on in the world today, everything going on in the workplace, you know, so many of us, too many of us, myself included sometimes, you know, we're always looking to somebody else to change things. And one of the things I want to say to you is every one of you impacts the ambiance of the 5 rows around you at work, the way energy that you bring to work, the kind of way that you show up, whether you are a person who's there listening, whether you continue to say, hey, I want to see the deeper meaning in the work, not just the task, whether you create that sense of community and connection around you, and whether you appreciate it. And it's also true in the home. You know, I'll tell you one of the things